open examination of UGM Graduate School doctoral promotion. Student Ms. Fransiska Widyawati, Ph.D. MHU. Program of Study, Religion and Cross Culture. Date, Thursday, 11 April 2013. Time, 10:30. Venue, Seminar Auditorium, 5th floor, UGM Graduate School. The team of examiners enters the auditorium, followed by the doctor candidate. The chairman of the team of examiners, Professor Dr. Hartono, DEA, DSS, Director of UGM Graduate School, opens the open examination.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am very glad that the examination for Mrs. Fransiska Widyawati officially open. First of all, I would like to introduce the team examiner for the ground promotion for Miss Fransiska Widyawati consists of 1. Dr. Matius Purwatma, promoter as member. 2nd, Dr. Tabitha Kartika Kristiani, co-promoter as member. 3. Professor Maribeth L. Ph.D., co-promoter as member. 4. Professor Dr. Y.P. Panawiratma, assessment team as member. 5. Dr. Sri Margono, assessment team as member. 7. Dr. Agus Nuryatno, assessment team as member. 7. Professor Dr. Bernard Adeni Sakota, examiner team as member. And 8. Professor Dr. Siti Hamamasrata SU, examiner as member. This occasion, Professor Maribeth and Professor Kamama are absent. Now I invite Dr. Matius Purwatma as promoter to introduce the Ph.D. candidate. Please.
Ph.D. candidate named Fransiska Widyawati, date of birth August 10, 1933, place of birth Manggarai, Flores, region Catholic. His education undergraduate, Department of Theology at St. Paul College, Ruteng. Master, Department of Contextual Theology at Sarata Dharma, Yogyakarta. Working experience from 1996 until now, lecturer and researcher at Theology and Division Department, St. Paul Graduate College, Ruteng, Flores, Indonesia. She writes some publication and she's an activist in the church. She would very diligently and makes this decision very seriously. This is the candidate of the program.
Thank you. Now I invite Mrs. Fransiska Widyawati to present her dissertations, especially on the innovation and invention you had. 15 minutes, please.
The Honorable, the Board of Examiners, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My title of dissertation is The Development of Catholicism in Flores, Eastern Indonesia, Manggarai Identity, Religion and Politics. It is a historical study of Catholicism in Manggarai, West Flores in 20th century. And now I am presenting the summary. I've divided my presentation into several main points. Here they are. And I start with the background of study. In comparison with other parts of Flores, Catholicism in Manggarai, West Flores, Eastern Indonesia is relatively new. The Dominican Portuguese missionaries had spread the gospel during 16th to 19th centuries in Eastern Flores, but they never reached Manggarai in the western part of the island. In 19th century, Dutch diocesan priests and Jesuit missionaries also came to Flores and continued to bring the Flores to Catholicism. But they also did not expand their mission to Manggarai. It was not until the beginning of 20th century when the Divine Word missionaries, DSVD, started to systematically introduce Christianity to the Manggarai. Although starting late, the SVD missionaries succeeded to bring the Manggaraians into Catholic Church. The church spectacularly grew. Only in about 25 years, most of the Manggaraians had become Catholics. According to 1961 statistic, about 80% of Manggaraians were affiliated to Catholics, and about 89.9% in 1980, and today approximately 95%. This has left Flores as the only Catholic island in this biggest Muslim country in the world. And Webb describes that the Florentines live on an island where even priests, rocks, and birds are Catholic. Interesting. For the Manggaraians, religion is part of their identity. To be a Manggarai means also to be a Catholic. An intellectual in Manggarai said, "I'm true Catholic. Whether I pray or attend Mass or not is irrelevant. I was born as Catholic. My grandpeople are original Catholics. We are the real things." And during local elections, based on my own experiences, I frequently heard people comment like this: even though he or she, a candidate, is morally bad, it is enough that he or she is a Catholic. We don't want other people from other place, or this means from non-Catholic religion, to have power over us. It is a Catholic land. Look at the pictures. Catholicism is very strong in the society. Such growth studies indicate that some societies are respected and some are not. I would say that Manggarai is a responsive and adaptive society to Catholicism. However, it doesn't mean that the Manggaraians did not experience problems in their encounters with Catholicism. Acceptance means negotiation and struggle. It should be reminded that the Catholic Church in Manggarai neither entered into an empty nor to a passive society. To come to Manggarai means to encounter with local beliefs, social system, and culture. In terms of religion, for instance, before Catholicism entered to the land, the local people already had their own indigenous belief. This is a rounded stone altar where people do their offerings or rituals. And look, on the top of those bamboo sticks, people put offerings for the spirits and ancestors. And this is one of big fish named Penti. And this is a killing chicken ritual. And in terms of social organization, it could be said that Manggarai is a circular or rounded community, as it is shown by rounded symbols like rounded paddy field, or rounded house, or rounded stone altar, or rounded village. And all are fairly different to Catholicism. Moreover, in terms of politics, Catholicization process happened in different situations, from Dutch colonialism to new independent Indonesia, Old Order, New Order, and Reformation era. How all of those contexts have shaped the development of Catholicism and constructed religious identity of Manggarai are very crucial. Now I'm moving to research questions. There are three main questions of this research. Why did the Manggarai convert to Catholicism and adopt Catholic identity during the 20th century? How did the Manggarai perceive church mission activities, and what were the problems, struggles, and challenges faced by the Manggarai in dealing with the mission? And what are the theological challenges for Manggarai Church? And the objectives of study are as on the screen to explain the process and reason to the Manggarai's conversion to Catholicism, to the big impact of Catholicism, and to propose theological challenges. And how to answer the questions? This study is a social research with basically developed historical approach. And to have better understanding about the context, this research draws upon multiple disciplines, including history of religion, anthropology, and sociology. And in collecting data, there are two main ways, as on the screen. And now I move to resources and theoretical frameworks. Here are some resources and theories I applied for the studies. Moreover, the dissertation outline. The dissertation consists of 7 chapters. Here they are: introduction, Manggarai, and so on. And now I come to the conclusion. There are 4 main findings of this study. This study concludes that religious activities, one relates to religious conversion, never presents in pure religious motivation, but always associate with non-religious interests, such as politics and the competition with other religions. It is true in the context of Manggarai. Catholic religion was introduced not merely to expand the Christianity, but also to constrain the development of Islam and to support colonial activities in that area. However, in the case of Manggarai, I argue that religious motivation is the main purpose of the missionaries, while other reasons are used to support the religious one. 2. This study finds the following reasons and factors why Catholicism grew fantastically in Manggarai. 1. Political factor. The government policies, laws, and regulations, both colonialism and Indonesian, are important factors that strengthen Catholicism rather than local or indigenous belief. And in the early of 20th century, colonialization was one important factor in facilitating people to convert into Catholicism and to constrain the development of Islam. And in Indonesian independence era, particularly after 1965 tragedy, the obligation to Indonesians to have one of 5 or 6 religions also strengthened Catholic Church in Manggarai. B. Socio-cultural transformation. The Church of Manggarai strategies to provide education, to develop modern health center, housing, road construction, and agriculture are successful in transforming the Manggarai from traditional to what so called as modern society, and all of which have attracted people to receive and to maintain Catholicism. 3. The successfulness of the Catholic Church inculturation strategy. By adopting local theology, language, songs, values, dances, clothing, and by Catholicization of some local rituals, Manggarai people would be not alienated from their old beliefs once they became Catholic. And 4. The Church's social contribution and significance to the society. The Manggarai people loved Catholicism because the Church could provide school, health center, and agricultural system, etc. 3. This study reveals that Manggarai is a responsive society to Catholic religion. The people are easily converted to Catholicism and also adopt Catholic as part of their identity. Even so, I would argue that it doesn't mean that the acceptance is experienced without strain, hurt, and depression. Catholic Manggarai identity is constructed through adaptation and conflict. 4. From theological perspective, Catholic faith cannot be experienced in its full form apart from cultural expression. Christian faith grows only in certain cultural contexts. It implies that a religion that fails to take a direct connection with local culture would be alienated from its own resources. A dialogue between global and local is a must. Catholicism could be meaningful for the Manggaraians if there are always mutual encounters in important areas of education, namely basic beliefs, social organization, religious symbols, and religious significances to the community. In terms of basic beliefs, the Manggarai Church can also use local theology and develop new intercultural theology rather than merely adopt Western theology. For instance, local theology about immanent and relation God, which is perceived God as mother and father, husband and wife, earth and sky, up and down, sunrise and sunset, challenges Christian theology in new understanding about God. In terms of religious symbols, the Manggarai Church can also adopt local religious symbols such as chompang or rounded stone altar, blood of buffalo or chicken to explain the significance of the blood of Christ and about the church. B. In terms of socio-religious organization, the church can use Manggarai local, rounded or circular community to understand the Second Vatican Council theology about the church as communion. And in terms of religious significances, the church can participate in building a Manggarai society that is premised on the ideal of justice and peace. The church can be alternative community that favor fights against poverty, lack of human resources, environment degradation, corruption, unjust mining, the problems that the Manggarai people face in the contemporary world. And finally, in addition to the findings, this study also proposed a theory, namely mutual and dominant relationship theory. It explains that the encounter between a religion and a culture happens in dynamic relations, either in positive or negative way. Positively, the encounter happens as a mutual relationship in which one enriches and influences to another. When two different things can support and enforce each other in mutual relationship, then they become rich and meaningful. Negatively, it happens when one acts dominantly to another. Two different things become meaningless if there are no supportive and elements from each other, if a dominant relationship is performed. Catholic faith can grow and become part of Manggarai's identity because there are always mutual dialogues between faith and culture. The Catholic faith finds appropriate ground and context for its growth and sustainability. And on the other hand, the culture of Manggarai can also alive because the people find and affirm religious faith aspect within the culture. Otherwise, it will be easily lost by time and various changes. And an important note that the dialogues happen between humans. It happens between people and people. So it implies that to embrace and to connect as much as possible people is very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And then I would like to invite Dr. Marcus Pratmas Promoter to pose any question in the remark, please.
Thank you. First of all, congratulate to Fransiska for this work. I will ask for some explanation on your findings in this dissertation. First, you mentioned that another possible explanation to answer why Catholicism easily grew in Manggarai can be linked to the missionaries' effort of incorporation. Would you like to tell us more about the effort of incorporation in Manggarai?
Thank you. Incorporation is this church effort to try to root and to be root in the local context. And since the beginning of Catholicism in Manggarai, the missionaries have tried to adopt and to use some of local cultures of Manggarai in Catholic religion. For instance, the use of local dances or songs or prayers that are brings to the Catholic Mass. That by doing this, the Manggarai can also pray and sing and dance within their culture, but with a very new image or very new perspective, because they have become Catholics. But I would say that even though there are a lot of efforts done by the missionaries in order to adopt the local cultures, but in general, I would say that most of the efforts are concentrated rather on sacramental or liturgical aspect rather than like social aspect. So even though it is very easy to find like local symbols within the liturgy, but we cannot. I could not say that it is enough for the church to adopt local culture, because in many cases, what are adopted by the church are usually or generally in material culture, like the clothing, the dance, and the symbols. But the church should also think about how to develop to another field, like the theology, the symbol, and what I propose in my dissertation, like the form of social organization that surrounded.
And with incorporation, you mentioned also about the dialogue between culture. But the exact thing, you mentioned also as your finding that Christian faith, Catholic faith cannot be experienced in its form apart from cultural expression. The exact way is dialogue between faith and culture, or between Western culture and local culture.
As an ideal thought, it should be a dialogue between faith and local culture. And it means that the church here means also the people and also the institution have to try much to grow the faith based on the culture of the people. And as the question whether what has happened in Manggarai, whether is it the dialogue between the Western and the local culture, it could be said yes, but also no. Yes, because in some cases, people may express their faith by using their local culture, but in some senses, like the substances of the faith, maybe there's no really hard effort how people express and how people group their faith within their local culture.
Yeah, but you said that Christian faith grows only in a certain cultural context. So that means there's no poor Catholic or Christian faith. Catholic and Christian faith is always in the certain culture.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that faith should be grown within a certain culture, and it means that even though we may see the imbalance, but it would be still say that people would express their faith based on their culture, their own culture.
And that's the problem is faith and culture, or Christ and culture, like neighbor, or culture and culture.
I think the neighbor's argumentation about Christ and culture, Christ is not only a person that the Christianity adopt or admire or worship at, but Christ is the symbol of all Christianity, including faith and also the personal symbol of God. So it doesn't mean that Christ separates from Christian faith.
That's enough.
Thank you. The next is Dr. Nafita Kartika, please.
Thank you. After a long way to finish your dissertation, Fransiska, and dealing with the Catholicism or Catholic Church in Manggarai in the past, now I would like to ask about the future of the Catholic Church in Manggarai, about the identity and so on. You mentioned in your dissertation about young people who are more Indonesian or even global than to be Manggaraian. So, what do you think about the future of this enculturation? Do you think that enculturation is enough only between Christianity or even Western Christianity and local or Manggaraian culture? Or do you think that it should have kind of dialogue with contemporary culture?
The way the people, including youth generation, perceive about their local culture is always changing from time to time. In the past, maybe when outsider culture were very limited to be found in the society, people really attached to their local culture. But when outsider culture, the culture of global and the culture of other people came, the people started to question and try to see what should I act before the new cultures. And I see that there is transformation within the Manggarai society, how the people, including youth generation, face or perceive the culture. At first, there's in particular the youth generation, there's a tendency to them to go outside, to find something new and try to live their own resources or own culture. So they, as I mentioned in the dissertation, that many people, especially the youth generation, like to adopt and to identify themselves with outsider culture. But there's also changing that when people are bored with other culture, they try to go back and to find. So there's always dynamic how people and young generation tries to adopt their own culture before another culture. And about the future, what should the church or the Manggarai, or what will be the Manggarai community or young generation should do, something like that? And I think that for the church itself, there should be always dialogue with including with the people, including the young generation. They cannot just give or give or insist something without dialogue with the young generation. So in some cases, maybe there should be like strategy that very fixed and eager to the young generation, that they can attract and to participate. They can attract and participate within the church without losing their own culture, but also without ignoring the tendency of the young generation. So how to balance between the local culture, how to maintain the local culture and the culture of the young generation. I say before, the culture of young generation is a very urgent task for the Manggarai Church.
Do you think so far that young people still like to practice the ritual, the local, the cultural ritual and the Manggarayan culture, or they just practice the contemporary culture?
There are both tendencies within the communities, but what is happening now is very different with what happened like 20 years ago or more than that. In the past, people practiced or did their cultural as part of their culture. They did rituals, but it is part of their like core culture. In contemporary world, there's a tendency. Many young people try to learn and to try to act like a real Manggarai or original Manggarai, but I found that in many cases, as I explained on my writings, that there's a tendency only to, as a performance, not a real action, as a performance, to perform in front of, for instance, in front of the tourists or in front of other people. But after the Reformation era, where people feel free to do everything, there's also a tendency that people go back to find what is our basic, what is our root. So there's we cannot generalize that people do this because of this, but there's some tendencies about that one.
Do you think there is a kind of influence from postmodernity or globalization? Something like that.
I think that the changes outside the Manggarai also influence people, not only in Manggarai, but also everywhere. But it affects to people in different levels, I think. It depends on how the relationship between them and outsider are built.
So what do you think that the church in Manggarai should do to deal with this? How to educate the catechism in Manggarai to deal with this issue?
For me, I think that what should be proposed by the church, means by the people. The church cannot do or propose what the church thinks good for them, but there should be dialogue between the church, the people with the people, and the local community. So what is important is how to build a dialogue and how to build like networking between people and the young generation. That they know how or what is the important thing for themselves. So there should not be like bottom up. You cannot do like this, but always a dialogue.
Okay, one more question. Regarding the basic communities that you already mentioned also, what do they need to do if we compare the basic communities in Latin America and then compared with in Manggarai? You already mentioned about what they do, like pray the rosary maybe, and then reading the Holy Scriptures. But what else do you think they need to do so the basic communities can struggle for justice and how they can deal with poverty?
I think that the church should learn the basic communities, like basic communities in Latin America, where the communities functions not only to gather people around the altar or the church or in liturgical ceremonies, but how the communities can strengthen all the people to build better and better communities for them. And if I see the real problems of the Manggarais nowadays, like lack of education, lack of human resources, poverty, environment degradation, mining exploration, I think that the church should be an alternative community how to fight against those problems. And my critiques in what I said in my dissertation, that local communities or basic communities in Manggarai are tending to be like sacramental and too liturgical, and it should be moved from altar to society. I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. The next is Professor Dr. J.P. Tonagratmo. Please.
Yeah, Fransiska. First of all, I want to express my appreciation to your study. Your study gives very much information, and also not only historical but also in certain degree theological information in Manggarai. And also you present your study very systematic, that yeah, I can follow your study easily. So a good study might always better following serious study. So I want to ask you, after struggling with Manggarai identity in the context of development of Catholicism, so if I want to hear a very short explanation, could you tell me what is actually Manggarai identity?
It's hard question. Identity is always constructed by time and by influences from outside, and it's always changing by time also. And it's hard to say Manggarai identity. What I propose in dissertation, Manggarai identity in encounter with Catholicism, that people, Manggarai people who are now Catholics, express their life, way, and faith not merely as a Catholic, but also as a Manggarai. And as a Manggarai, they live in Manggarai land with their Manggarai culture. Even though I would say that culture is always changed and influenced by something else, but there's always unique characteristic of the Manggarais. And Manggarai identity, some of the type or some of expression that I may mention in my dissertation, like in terms of basic beliefs, they have special name or title to God, how to express and how to call the God. And in terms of social organization, they are rounded communities, something like this. So I would say that Manggarai identity are the identity of the Manggarai that are based on their culture, but also because they are now living as a Catholics, as also a Manggarai Catholic. So Manggarai Catholics.
So, so you tell us that you cannot tell about Manggarai culture without Catholicism. And may I continue? Could you speak about Manggaraian identity or Manggaraian culture without, let's say, modern gadgets like handphone, television, internet, and so on?
I don't think so, because in the past probably people did not attach with those communication devices. But today, even in a very remote place, people now can watch television, and everybody may have a phone cell. So what is happening outside that world, they easily know about that. But I don't think that it happens only in Manggarai. It happens in all over the world. But however, I think that even though there's like flows of culture from outside, there's still some unique and substantive culture that grows and lived by the Manggarai people.
Yeah, I want to touch your, let's say, proposal about theory, what you call this mutual and dominant relationship theory. I feel rather confused after hearing your explanation. So if you talk about Catholicism, you use the word the growth and sustainability. It's very positive. But if you talk about the culture, you talk about the culture of Manggarai can also be alive. So I want to ask whether you can say the culture of Manggarai can also grow and be sustainable. So I want to use the same word for Catholicism and for Manggarai, namely growth and sustainability. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it would be like that, because the culture is not a static things or stable things, but it has dynamics in characteristics, so it may grow and sustain. And in the sense that it is a very urgent task for the people, including the church that is living in the Manggarai right now, how to ensure that people still living based on their own roots, which is we call as culture. And it means here that the culture, yes, again I say, is not a static one, but how to grow the culture of the people based on their own history and resources. Even though maybe the culture would be different from time to time, but there's always like substances, things that should be attached and by the people.
Yeah, thank you very much. The next is Dr. Sri Margono, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Candidate, first I'd like to congratulate you for accomplishing this interesting study. It is very systematic, very well written, easy to understand. I think this is one of the final studies for Catholicism, historical study of Catholicism in Manggarai. So, congratulations. However, I want to clarify something that I want to know while I'm reading. I really enjoyed reading the book. Let me start with the title of the book. The development of Catholicism in Flores, Eastern Indonesia, Manggarai identity, religion, and politics. My first question is, how do you relate on those three elements: identity, religion, and boundary. How it matches each other, how it's related logically or systematically.
Okay, thank you. My study is a historical study of Catholicism in Manggarai in 20th century. And I try to depict and to elaborate how Catholicism entered to the land and how it grew within the society. And in terms of that, I found that there's struggles and the struggles, the encounters between Catholicism and local culture that influence in developing certain kinds of identity of the Manggarai. And Catholicism here also encounters with the local religion. That's why I also put religion. And why I put the politics, because in the development of Catholicism, in Catholicization process within the Manggarai, it happens always in within certain political context, from the Dutch colonialism, Japanese New Order, Old Order, and New Order. So the title I use is to show how the development of Catholicism close to the construction of the local people identity in terms of religion, but also in regards to the politics of both Indonesian and colonialism in influencing the development of Catholicism in Manggarai.
Okay, following Professor Bono concerning about the identity, you said that identity always changes all the time. Could you tell me what is the identity of Manggarai before the coming of Catholicism?
Even the question about what is Manggarai or what were the Manggarai are very complicated questions, because even before the foreign dominations influenced the Manggarai, starting about like 16th centuries by the coming of the Bimanis and the Goanis. Before 16th centuries, it could be said that the Manggarai actually lived within like remote village and lived separately between one to another. And it's hard to find where is the Manggarai itself term came out for the first. But I think like Indonesian identity, which is constructed by the foreign people, I think also the Manggarai identity also constructed through the coming of foreign dominations such as Bimanis, Goanis, and in particular by the coming of Catholicism. And if you ask that what was exactly the identity of the Manggarai before Catholicism, what would be traced is only some like oral tradition and symbol that the local people in that area commonly share, like by their house, their oral tradition, and their ritual, their beliefs, and their cultural system.
Okay, perhaps this will help you. I will give you a kind of multiple choice question and you can choose it. What does Catholicism means for Manggarai people? Is it prosperity, protection, freedom, future, or all of them, or none of them?
Maybe it depends on the groups and the people. Some people may enjoy Catholicism contribution to the society, that they may say, one of my argumentation that why Catholicism grew fantastically in Manggarai, because the church provided people schools. It was the Catholic Church that for the first time introduced school, health center, market, and agricultural youth system to the Manggarai. So people love Catholicism because of their contribution. But if we ask another group, I think that the coming of Catholicism also gave negative influences, especially in regards to the marginalization of the local authorities, local authorities, and also some local cultural symbols and practices that in the past were forbidden by the missionaries to do.
Okay, my previous question is relation with religion and identity. But how about the religion and politics? If Catholicism being so many or so much more for Manggarai people, how about politics? How about Indonesia as a representation of state? Because here, religion, politics, and identity. If you're asking about what is Catholic or religion is to Manggarai and what is politics for Manggarai, is it state is less important than religion or what?
Before the Dutch colonialism or foreign colonialism came to the land, it could be said that there's like some kind of freedom. But the coming of foreign domination, starting from the Bimanese and Goanese, people have local authority have to share their power with others. And by the coming of Catholicism, as I explained, that Catholicism came for the first time in Manggarai by the help of Dutch colonialism. And that colonialism opened the possibility to the missionaries, not only open, even forced the missionaries to come and to deploy Catholicism to the land in order to constrain the development of Islam, which had grown before, and also to strengthen the colonialism activities. And one of very strategic program, or one of the most strategic program of the Dutch colonialism and Catholic Church, that is to weaken the authority of the authority of the local other leader by appointing a Catholic king for the Manggarai, and by moving the local authority center to another place, which is in Ruteng now. And in this sense, it could be said that the politics or the contribution of the Dutch colonialism particularly could be seen from negative perspective to weaken the local authority. And during Indonesian independence, there's also many policies and strategies that proposed by the government that also gave a negative impact to the local people. But it could be denied that there's also some contribution of the Indonesian state to the Manggarai. But as a person living in Java right now, I often say that like Manggarai is anak tiri of Indonesia because because in comparing with the progress or how the Indonesian government concerned to the Japanese people are very different with who are living in outsider of Java. So
the last question, perhaps can you tell me why people in this room should read your dissertation? What is the strength of your dissertation? Why I should read your dissertation?
Okay, I invite all of you to read my dissertation. You will be grateful if you are reading my dissertation, because I wrote the dissertation within like 3 years, 3 years, and with all of my heart and all of my minds, even though I found and experienced many bad things, and I even said I wanted to stop, but because it is, I think, because I write with my heart and my love, I think you may find something interesting within it. And in particular, in terms of religious studies, my dissertation gives like alternative or not alternative, like non-dominant things about religion in Indonesia. There are already many abundant studies about religious communities, which were done in particular in Java, and in Flores or in outsider community are very rare. So I think it gives a new perspective about history of Catholicism or history of religion in Indonesia.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next is Dr. Agus Nuriatno, please.
Thank you very much for the time, and I would like to ask 3 questions. The first one, I would like to go back to the quotation that you mentioned in your PowerPoint. There is 2 statements here. That the first one is, I'm the true Catholic. Whether I pray or attend Mass or not is irrelevant. I am born as Catholic. And the second statement is that even though he or she is morally bad, it is enough that he or she is a Catholic. So, do you agree with this statement?
Okay, the statements are on the screen. It is not about agree or not, but why I choose these 2 statements. They are used to explain or to express how the Manggarai really are really proud of being Catholic, and it is not about truth or not, but it is an expression about their identity. Even though, as I always propose, that Catholicism, the people may experience Catholicism not only in very good things, but also bad things, but people are very proud. But if you ask about the content of the statement, of course I don't agree, because for the first one, is I true Catholic whether I pray or not, I was born Catholic. I think this is only a pride of someone.
So this is not serious, you mean?
Yeah.
This is not serious?